The suffocating silence that followed was a physical presence, heavier than the humid air clinging to my skin. I had just watched my painstakingly developed marketing strategy, the one I'd championed for months, effortlessly repackaged and presented by Mark as his own, complete with my core metrics and unique campaign name. A ripple of impressed murmurs ran through the room, followed by effusive praise directed solely at him. My colleagues' loud affirmations drowned out the quiet, almost imperceptible tremor that ran through me. I felt like an alien observer in a world that refused to acknowledge my presence, let alone my contributions. It wasn't just dismissal, it was a deliberate erasure, a clean sweep of my efforts. While they celebrated a stolen victory, I simply sat, a silent witness, registering every nod, every smile. That quiet observation was the first inkling of my Octopus's phase, an invisible shift towards something far more intricate. The water had turned murky, but beneath the surface, I was already learning to see clearly. The silence that followed the news wasn't the kind you could ignore. It was a vast, echoing void where my professional future used to be. The internal memo, circulated just hours after my last presentation, outlined the new strategic direction for the Ether Initiative, a project I had conceptualized, modeled, and championed for 18 months. My name was conspicuously absent, replaced by familiar figures who had sat in my meetings, nodded along, and now stood ready to claim the vision. The entire detailed framework for market entry as their innovative breakthrough. The sting was immediate, a hot flash of betrayal that tightened my chest, threatening to erupt, but I refused to let it fester into a reactive scream. Instead, a different kind of quiet settled over me. They had dismissed my contributions as background noise, my steady groundwork as invisible labor. They saw my quiet diligence not as competence, but as a lack of presence, making it easy to overlook, then to erase. For a brief, crushing moment, I felt like a ghost in my own professional life. Yet, that perceived invisibility, the very quality they exploited, began to morph in my mind. It wasn't a flaw, it was a cloak, a strategic advantage they hadn't bothered to consider. True power, I understood in that moment of cold clarity, wasn't found in the immediate emotional outcry they might expect, or even bait. Retaliation would be a public spectacle, loud and messy, confirming their perceived victory. No, power resided in the deliberate quiet, in a strategic dive beneath the surface where their attention wouldn't reach. While they celebrated their shallow win, unaware of the deep currents they had stirred, I would begin to map the precise coordinates for my own silent, undeniable reemergence. My quiet disposition often led people to misjudge me, seeing only the placid surface. Beneath it lay an intricate, highly adaptable intelligence, much like an octopus, perceiving patterns, sensing shifts, finding unexpected solutions. My strength wasn't in pronouncements, but in methodically connecting disparate data points others overlooked. My former partners, Mark and Sarah, masters of surface impressions, initially dismissed my unconventional approaches as charming eccentricities. They'd chuckle at my peculiar habit of mapping complex scenarios on whiteboards, seeing oddity where I saw strategy. My deliberate silence was insignificance to them, my deep data dives, mere busywork. They never grasped the value of seeing 3 steps ahead, anticipating subtle ripple effects. Yet, these methods soon unlocked our venture's opportunities. Once profits accumulated, their amusement transformed into calculated appropriation, claiming my strategies as the company's innovative culture, certain I'd simply accept it. While they celebrated their perceived victory, believing I was adrift, I was already charting a new course. Being invisible in plain sight became my most potent disguise, allowing me to move through their self-congratulatory haze with unblinking clarity. Outwardly, I maintained a facade of calm resilience, attending meetings, completing my tasks, and even offering an encouraging word when necessary. Internally, however, a meticulously crafted strategy began to unfold. Every overheard conversation, every casually discarded email, every seemingly insignificant detail became a crucial piece of my evolving map. I archived everything, building a quiet, undeniable paper trail that mirrored their public confidence yet betrayed their private sloppiness. My first definitive step involved preliminary consultations with a business attorney specializing in partnership agreements. I chose Sarah Chen, whose reputation for quiet, tenacious efficiency preceded her. During our initial 2-hour meeting, held discreetly off-site, she walked me through the nuances of non-disclosure agreements and, more critically, the existing dissolution clauses in our partnership documents. She identified several vulnerabilities in our current arrangement, particularly regarding asset division and proprietary information. The process was not swift. It involved substantial document review and several follow-up calls, each building a robust framework for my eventual move. The upfront retainer alone was $12,500, a significant sum that moved from my savings account with the silent, irresistible force of an undertow, but it was an investment in reclaiming what was rightfully mine. If they wanted to play games, I would play by the rules they never bothered to read. Have you ever felt truly invisible, only to realize that quiet observation was your greatest strength? Let me know in the comments. The currents were shifting, and I was learning to ride them. While they were busy celebrating their supposed triumphs on social media, complete with glossy photos of new offices and self-congratulatory press releases, I was operating in a different dimension entirely, the digital underbrush. My strategic invisibility wasn't passive. It was a deliberate, active choice, a deep dive into the labyrinth of public data, a silent, methodical hunt. Every tweet celebrating their innovation was a signal for me to dig deeper into corporate filings, news archives, and professional registries. I compiled spreadsheets brimming with anonymized timestamps, tracking their every public move against a backdrop of my own meticulous research. For months, my evenings were spent sifting through Securities and Exchange Commission databases, cross-referencing corporate registration documents with county clerk records, uncovering shell entities and obscured partnerships that linked directly back to my original intellectual property. The waiting was tedious, sometimes weeks for an amended filing to become public record, or months for a property deed transfer to clear through the various municipal offices, each step requiring diligent follow-up and verification. This granular work, this constant cross-referencing of public records, felt like piecing together a vast bureaucratic puzzle, one where every tiny detail was a critical component. Yet, each delayed document only hardened my resolve, reminding me of the systemic patience required to unravel complex deceptions. I had copies of my earliest project proposals, dated and time-stamped emails from 5 years prior, confirming concept originality and even design schematics, irrefutable receipts of my contributions they had so carelessly discarded. Beyond the paper, I had legally obtained call recordings, conversations where key players, in their misguided hubris, inadvertently confirmed their awareness of my foundational work, believing my silence meant ignorance. This period wasn't about revenge. It was about precision, about gathering undeniable facts. Every piece of information I unearthed formed another layer of my camouflage, allowing me to move unseen, building a case brick by painstaking brick, a foundation that would one day peel back their carefully constructed facade. The silence that had enveloped their world, born of their own self-assured entitlement, was about to be profoundly broken. It wasn't my voice that shattered it, but the crisp, formal letter from my attorney's office requesting specific financial records related to the family trust. I imagined the envelope, official and stark, arriving at their perfectly manicured door, an unwelcome guest. For so long, they had operated with an arrogant assumption of untouchability, oblivious to any consequence. But that single, precisely worded legal inquiry, demanding information they believed was buried, introduced a chilling foreign element. Their initial dismissive laughter, I knew, would quickly curdle into a dawning, unsettling confusion. This was just the first ripple on the surface. A quiet indication that the water was no longer still. The sudden stillness that followed my initial move was deceptive. It was merely the calm before their storm. Predictably, the pushback began with a frantic, desperate flurry of activity. My phone buzzed with unfamiliar numbers. My inbox swelled with accusatory emails and thinly veiled threats, riddled with false claims. Their intent was clear: to discredit me publicly and legally, creating enough noise to drown out the quiet truth I held. But I was ready. Every email, every voiceless message, every screenshot of their unhinged social media whispers was meticulously logged, dated, and forwarded to my legal team. They filed frivolous motions, alleging errors, yet each was met with our evidence-laden counterfiling. While their legal fees mounted with each desperate maneuver, my budget remained intact, meticulously planned for this attrition. Their chaos only sharpened my focus, each failed attack solidifying my next strategic step. The final confrontation wasn't loud, but the silence in that conference room was deafening, punctuated by the crisp rustle of legal papers I moved across the polished mahogany. They arrived with the same practiced nonchalance, ready to dismiss my claims as emotional posturing. But emotional posturing had been replaced by meticulous preparation. I began not with accusations, but with unimpeachable facts. The notarized settlement agreement reclaiming my full intellectual property rights, the definitive assignment of patents back into my sole ownership, and the certified dissolution of their business stake, effective immediately in my original concept. Their desperate rationalizations, murmurings about misunderstandings, and generous initial terms were precisely what I anticipated. Their noise, however, found no purchase against the irrefutable evidence I systematically presented. Time-stamped emails detailing their attempts to rebrand my innovations, the forensic audit of their initial capital contributions, or lack thereof, and the legal precedents confirming my artistic and design control, now secured under federal statute. The contrast was stark. Their bluster against my meticulously assembled documentation, their past deceptions against my clear, strong future design. They had spent months trying to dissect my vision and claim its parts. I spent that time quietly building a new vessel. My new venture, Nautilus Labs, was not merely incorporated. It was already a thriving entity, focused fiercely on ethical, sustainable innovation that aligned perfectly with my true values. They thought they'd cut me into pieces, convinced my departure would leave me fragmented and powerless. They didn't realize octopuses can regenerate, and I'm not just a master of camouflage. I'm a master of my own ocean. This wasn't just a legal settlement. It was a profound reclamation, a complete rebirth of my identity and my vision. If this story resonated with you, consider sharing your own experiences of turning invisibility into strength. What's your hidden superpower?